Sierra Club, I welcome you and thank you for joining us today. We are here to announce St. Petersburg's Ready for 100 Clean Energy for All campaign. The Suncoast Group of Sierra Club is one of the first to step up to the challenge of working with our city, businesses, and community to build a consensus that St. Pete is committed to transitioning to 100% renewable energy. We believe that St. Pete can and should be a leader in the clean energy movement and aim to be the first city in Florida to achieve 100% renewable status. We are inspired by Mayor Rick Kreisman's executive order on sustainability, his signing of the Declaration of Local Leadership, and the Star Communities Initiative. We will get St. Pete to 100% clean energy by utilizing the 4 E's: economy, environment, equality, and efficiency. The sun shines here, let's use it. I want to acknowledge some of the efforts of some of the people who have worked tirelessly to get us to this point. Marcia Biggs, David Harbeitner, Linda Demler, Phil Compton, Frank Jackalone, George Root, Andrea Anderson, Tim Martin, and Kathy Harrelson. I'd also like to introduce our new partners from Inspired, Emily Gorman, wave, James Scott, and Devesh Nirmal. They're going to be organizing our community efforts and our educational campaign. So we're really looking forward to working with them and getting this off the ground. We welcome you to work to build a consistency among the business community, with property owners, and with the citizens of St. Pete that our city is ready for 100. Please make sure, if you haven't, that you signed in. I see you all have stickers, so you must have, because we want to know that you are ready for 100. And we look forward. Our next event is going to be the film, The Future of Energy, on April 21st at the museum, St. Petersburg Museum of History. We look forward to seeing you all there. And thanks again for attending and being part of St. Petersburg's robust and sustainable development. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Frank. Hi, everybody. So it's really great to be here today for a couple reasons. First, this is awesome, and I'm really interested to hear in a couple minutes about the success of this building over the first 3 years and how the building has been able to produce more energy than it consumes. So it's not even a net zero building anymore. It's a clean energy positive building. But it's particularly gratifying to come here to talk about 100% clean energy because in Tampa is the location of my first Sierra Club meeting 6 years ago. It was 6 years ago, across the bay, where the Sierra Club Board of Directors had its meeting, and I had just been hired. And we had a discussion about the long-term future of the Sierra Club and what kind of organization we wanted the Sierra Club to be, what we stood for, not just what we stood against, but what we stood for. And this was in February of 2010. And at the time, we were looking at what could the Sierra Club do that could be most impactful on climate change? What single thing could we do could have the biggest effect on clean energy? And how could we unite communities all across the country? And so what we decided then was that we need to invest in our grassroots, we need to invest in people, and we need to invest in organizing to produce a vision that would inspire people across the country. At the time, in February of 2010, activists, community organizers, and activists all across the country had worked together to stop about 160 new coal-fired power plants all across the country. And so let's think about what we've done in the last 6 years. And I want to talk about the thing that has been the most historic in the last 6 years. What has been the most historic thing that we've seen in the last 6 years has not been the fact that we have been successful in stopping the construction of almost every new coal-fired power plant that was proposed from one coast of the country to the other, although that's pretty awesome. Yeah, right. It's not the fact that since January 1st of 2010, Together, we have secured the retirement of 230 existing coal-fired power plants from one part of the country to the other. That's pretty awesome, too. It's not the fact that we defeated Keystone, or that we pushed Shell out of the Arctic, or that we stopped oil drilling on the Atlantic seaboard, although all of that's pretty good, too. It's not even the fact that we signed an agreement in Paris last year where 190 countries all agreed to work together. Basically, every institution in the world has committed to cut their carbon, except for Republicans in the Senate. It's not even that we have almost every country agreeing to cut their carbon and scale up clean energy. The thing that is most important, the thing that is changing the world right now, is that because of all of this activism, because of people in the 1970s and the 1980s and the 1990s who began to install solar on the rooftops of their churches, of their businesses, of their homes, who advocated at the local level, at the state level for renewable portfolio standards, because of activists who stopped new coal plants, who shut down existing coal plants, who began to shut down natural gas-fired power plants. Because of all of this work, because of people who invested in electric vehicles, who bought their own electric vehicles, who pushed cities like St. Pete to invest in electric buses, because of all of this, what has happened is that clean energy is cheaper than dirty fuels. That is huge. Solar and wind in a majority of the country right now, and a majority of countries around the world right now, solar and wind are cheaper than gas, cheaper than coal, cheaper than nuclear power. The solutions are cheaper than the problem. So what does that mean? What that means, for the first time in history, we can build our civilization with power that is 100% safe, 100% secure, 100% sustainable. Think about that. Think about the time in which we live. We are living in a time where we're going to create a society that is powered by 100% clean energy for everybody, that works for everyone. Every time we replace a coal plant or a natural gas plant with solar or wind, that is irreversible. We'll never go back. Every time that we decide to shut down a new nuclear power plant, or not build a nuclear power plant, not build a natural gas pipeline, decide not to frack in our watersheds, or not to blow up our mountains with coal, that is the last time we'll have to make that decision. Raise your hand if you think that 15, 20 years from now, people will get nostalgic for mercury pollution in their tuna fish. Raise your hand if you think that people will miss watching their children use inhalers so that they can breathe. Think about what we're a part of. We are a part of an amazing movement together that is teaching our country and the rest of the world how to power their economy with clean energy. So what you all know, the reason why you're here is because you're activists. You know that this will be a fight. You know that companies like Exxon, or Chevron, or Shell, or Peabody Coal, you know that there are governors across the country who are going to double down on this fight. And they will want to cling to fossil fuel power. So what do we need to do? We need to do three things. Organize, organize, and organize. That's all we need to do. Talk to your friends. You need to bring your cousins, your grandparents, your grandkids, your neighbors, your frenemies, everybody, because we can work together to build an economy that's powered by clean energy. What we know is that the challenge of climate change is only getting more severe. It's only getting more stark. There's a powerful article in the New York Times today about the threats that climate change posed, not to society 80 years or 70 years or even 50 years from now, but in this generation. We know that the challenge of climate change has never been more extreme, has never been more severe. But what we also know is that changing the way in which we get our energy isn't just a problem for us to solve, it's an opportunity for us to seize. We don't need to build pipelines that divide our country in two when we can invest in clean energy that will bring us all together. We don't have to be exporting natural gas or exporting coal when we can be exporting clean energy solutions. So I'm thrilled to be here in St. Petersburg. I'm thrilled that this is one of the first cities to ignite this movement for 100% clean energy. And I will be back here for the victory party this November. But in the meantime, we need to organize. We need to fight, and we need to be smart, and we need to be hopeful and visionary about the future that we're working to create. It is good for us to stop fracking in every state that we can. It is smart for us to organize against every coal plant and coal ash dump site and coal mining site in the country. It is imperative that we organize for strong national and global standards for clean energy. But we have to be willing to articulate a vision for what we stand for. We need to be making sure that when we advocate for clean energy, we're advocating for policies that work for everybody, in particular for low-income communities and communities of color that need to be locked into the benefits of a clean energy economy, just as they've been locked out of the benefits of the growing economy of the past. We need to make sure that we are inclusive in our organizing and that we bring communities together around a unified vision that works for everybody. Just like this building is an example for the rest of the country for how we can bring about increased prosperity through clean energy investments, what happens in St. Petersburg can be an example for the rest of the world for an economy that's based on 100% clean energy that works for everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Hello there. Well, the city is excited to be a part of the Sierra Club's Ready for 100 campaign. Very excited. As many of you know, in 2015, Mayor Kreisman created, through executive order, the Office of Sustainability. And as I have learned, our leaders and our city departments have been implementing sustainable projects for years. So I am very appreciative of city leadership and the community here for the opportunity to work throughout city operations and with you and the rest of the community on challenges like 100% clean energy. The mayor, deputy mayor, city council, and many department heads have all not only been supportive, but hands-on in moving forward on a broad range of sustainability needs. So we have a lot of help. The executive order the mayor signed in 2015 includes aggressive goals, a couple of them, like zero waste and net zero energy. So partnering as a leader with the Sierra Club and other cities for the Ready for 100 campaign is a sensible step. Signing on to the declaration will position St. Petersburg to learn from other cities, educate our citizens, and collaborate with residents and the business community to develop a path to 100% clean energy. It is an important early step towards the overall resiliency of St. Petersburg. The Ready for 100 campaign also aligns with the city's move to become a STAR certified community. STAR Communities is a nationally recognized tool. The city is currently using this tool to evaluate local sustainability encompassing economic, environmental, and social performance measures. They include job retention and creation, arts and culture, crime prevention, poverty alleviation, and greening the energy supply, among many others. STAR Communities will put St. Petersburg on yet another national stage, helping to make the city a competitive place for continuing to grow while protecting and enhancing our quality of life. Moving to 100% clean energy will help reduce our city's contribution to greenhouse gas emissions. It is in our interest to reduce our contribution to the effects of climate change and be ready for the environmental changes we can already see, like extreme weather and sea level rise. As a coastal city, we must have a healthy environment to have a healthy economy and community. Now, the city is a willing and able leader, but moving towards 100% clean energy will also require significant community-wide efforts. A path to 100% clean energy requires buy-in from decision makers, business leaders, and residents. This effort requires changes in behavior and thinking, and it will require that we discuss these challenges in places that are not always so comfortable, and it may require that we try new things and take some risks. Aggressive goals like this will likely have some upfront costs, but please consider that no initiative and no early investments in clean energy will also have a cost. And we prefer to be smart in St. Petersburg and ready for future opportunities. So thank you. Well, this is the declaration that the National Sierra Club and local Sierra Suncoast chapter came up with. And when we shot it over to the mayor's office to say, we need you to sign on to this in January, he wrote a great letter saying, yes, we will. And what it says is a transition to renewable energy presents one of the greatest economic opportunities of the 21st century. It will protect public health, share energy production, and supply it more equitably, among other things. So we put it in this format because we wanted Mayor Rick Kreisman to sign on personally, and he has done that, and I'm proud to work under this administration. So thank you.
Good morning. So you guys just heard it. Frank is my old boss. And now I have about 250,000 bosses. And I do miss you, Frank. Before I get started, I want to point out that I have an awesome colleague here with us today. And could everybody please give a really big applause for my colleague, City Council Member Carl Nurse. Carl, of course, joined City Council a few years before I did, but Carl really started some of our most important work with Green Cities and working closely with our staff and looking at all ways to improve our city operations. And now and because of Carl's work and the foundation of his accomplishments, we now know what the next thing we have to do is really focus on our community-wide emissions reductions and doing what we can to focus on that area, which was frankly a little bit more difficult. But yeah, it's great to be kind of like back home in a sense. I started my work with Sierra Club 15 years ago, and so much has changed in the last 15 years. And even with Sierra Club, when I started, the Global Warming and Energy Program was kind of the redheaded stepchild in the DC and San Francisco offices. And that was 2001, and that was before, at our conservation summit, it was before we made global warming our #1 conservation focus. It was before Hurricane Katrina. It was before Al Gore and Inconvenient Truth. It was before we saw Larsen B ice shelf slip into the Antarctic. So, and now look at how far we've come, and this is like the main conservation focus of the Sierra Club. And it's not such a small surprise that just getting started with Sierra Club 15 years ago as a clean car activist, that now I would be very humbled to be one of our leaders on PSTA, working on the same issues in a different way. I think it speaks to how meaningful and transformative the work that we're doing here is. And one may start out with cleaning up Crescent Lake or going to a clean car rally or working to sign petitions or speak at a public hearing to stop a coal-fired plant. And then you find out, just as the founder of Sierra Club once wrote, John Muir, that when we try to pick out anything by itself, we find that it's hitched to everything else in the universe. So indeed, our work on clean energy, whether it's fighting offshore oil drilling, protecting the eastern Gulf of Mexico, or whether it's pushing for clean car and clean bus technology, that work does not stay isolated. Pretty soon we find ourselves working on land use planning, which leads to growth management, which leads to transportation, which leads to housing, which leads to economics and the new green energy revolution, and leads to public health. You get the point, right? It also leads to the undeniable importance of developing a loud and clear voice, an organized and passionate constituency in the halls of Congress, the corridors of Tallahassee, and the chambers of City Hall. And I see Lisa getting nervous, so let me just make sure that that loud voice is a 501c3 voice. Sierra Club has been an incredible, important partner all along the way, locally, statewide, and nationally. That's what makes Sierra Club have the unique power and specialness and effectiveness that it has as an organization. So when you have all these elements line up, the local Sierra Club, state, national Sierra Club, and working with your local elected officials and local community, It's amazing, and it's exciting to see what we can accomplish. And having been a longtime observer and participant of local politics, I think a lot of us can truly say that this is how things get done. And thank you for being a part of that. The choices that we make now are so very important. Some of the work is pretty hard and it takes a while. Sharon Wright, who we just heard from, is neck deep in reviewing policies and figuring out the pathways for better decisions and planning, and to figure out the pathways for how we achieve more sustainable policies, how we get that in our capital budget. Not sexy, but that is where the real work gets done. And that is what you elected me and Carl and the mayor to do, to make sure that your elected leaders and our staff people are rolling up our sleeves to make these policies real, to make sure that they have teeth, to make sure that they have measurable outcomes and real impacts. Now, all of these efforts, and you can see on the board over here, there's like about, no kidding, about 50 different policies we're looking at right now to become a more sustainable city. All of those efforts are easier to communicate and accomplish if we have clear, audacious goals. And Ready for 100 is exactly that. Our goals are to drive sustainability into the DNA of the city so that years down the line, we have it ingrained as a regular way of doing business. So we might have a different mayor, and we'll surely have different city council mayors, but we want to make sure we leave behind a legacy of sustainability and clean energy that won't go away. The choices that we make now impact our future, and we have to look climate change and clean water. We have to look those issues right in the eye. We have to be bold. We have to be brave. We have to be honest. We have to look at the way our cities are run, even if it means that we reinvent the planning process because sea level rise and flooding and reinsurance economic forces us to build differently. We may have to reinvent business models because we will value things differently and we will redefine what profit means to our community. We have to look at the franchise agreements with our utility contracts that prevent us from innovating. Do I hear an amen, Commissioner Nurse? Our dependency on oil puts us on a collision course with the world, and it makes us dependent on unstable oil countries. We know natural gas isn't the solution. Fracking destroys our water supply. And we know that cities are increasingly the center of innovation and new ideas. And that's because we have to be. There's no cavalry swooping in to save us. We've got to figure this out, and we figure this out together. I think St. Pete is up to the task. I think we are the ones who can lead the Tampa Bay region. I am ready for Tampa Bay to start the next regional climate compact. I am ready for regional and bold plans on transit. I am ready for a real clean energy plan for our state. I am ready to make St. Pete a leader in sustainability. I am ready for a climate action plan. I am ready for a resiliency plan. And I am ready for 100.